It's feeding day. Hello tarantula lovers, I'm Alex and you're watching Tarantula Haven. My summer has begun, I'm out of school and I've got all these grand plans for videos that I want to do, and lately I've been kind of running around doing different things, so it's kind of gotten in the way of my video shooting, but I did collect a bunch of videos of feedings when I was feeding my tarantulas last, so I figured what better time to buy me a little bit of time? I will give you a feeding video, which a lot of you seem to enjoy anyway, so here it is. Okay, let me start with Grammostola pulchripes, commonly known as the Chaco golden knee. These are slings that I have, and gave it a little boost there. They're probably about a ½ inch now, and they're taking food readily. They're barely starting to get the little golden stripes on their knees there. Here's the other one. And as you can see, they're very keen on getting prey. This one will actually dig it out of the substrate. There it goes. Next I have the Ceratogyrus marshalli, the straight horn baboon. This one was the only one that ate for me. The other two seem to have recently molted, so they weren't up to eating. And that's it. Next up I have Chromatopelma cyanopubescens, commonly known as the green bottle blue. And they've been a little bit weird about eating lately. This one kind of found its prey and then attacked it. This is my second sling that I have, and again, located its prey. But once it located it, the discoids have a tendency to play dead, so they just kind of sit there for a long while. And I guess it's like they don't really know what to do until it moves again, so they just kind of sit there waiting. Of course, I get impatient. And waiting. I figured I might as well give it some water while I'm at it, and I usually put a little bit of water on the webbing itself because it feeds up on the webbing, and they'll have a tendency to drink from there. But of course I distracted it from its prey, so I figured, well, I'll just go ahead and squirt it anyway. So I got tired of waiting and I threw another roach in. And of course it didn't want to go where I wanted it to, and clumsy me got to bang everything around. But I finally got it where it needed to be. And I just left the other roach in there because the way they are, it would have probably eaten the roach soon afterward, gotten both of them. And here is my other, my juvenile green bottle blue. And it's kind of in an in-between stage where it's starting to go from its sling colors to its adult colors. So this is what I kind of call the ugly duckling stage. If you can see there, the legs are very drab. They're kind of grayish, black looking. They don't have that beautiful green sheen to them that they usually do. It's got a little bit of it, but eventually that will turn into a more blue color. and the carapace has lost its golden color. The abdomen is still bright orange, as you can see. Up next is Brachypelma emilia, commonly known as the Mexican redleg. And this one is a pretty good eater for me. It's grown quite a bit. It's about a ½ inch now. And I don't usually have any trouble with it feeding, so it's doing some growing. I definitely got to change out the substrate. I'm seeing a couple of mites there. I keep it a little bit moist, but I need to dry it out. And this is Tarantula sazimi, the Brazilian blue. And this one at this point is in its pinkish phase. They kind of start out a dull gray, brownish color, but as they start getting some size on them, they go through this, I guess, a pinkish phase. To me, it looks pink. And it's right after this that they start to develop their bluish hairs. This one, you can see there's really no blue on it whatsoever. Very good eaters. Getting a little happy dance there. And this is Tarantula sazimi number 2. And my other two weren't all that keen on eating this time. This one, as you can see, has started to develop that blue color. They, as far as I can tell, or as far as I know, they're all clutch mates, so they're around the same age. But this one seems to be one molt ahead of the other one. So it has already started to get that blue color to it. Goes. They play dead for a while, and then once they move, they grab them. Next up are the Phormictopus cancerides, and these guys are very hardy eaters, very bold tarantula. And as you can see, they're still in their bluish phase. There we go, there's the attack. P. cancerides number 2. I didn't think this one would eat with that big fat booty of hers, but yeah, it jumped on it. I figured it was in pre-molt, and it may be true because it looks like it just attacks it and kind of hangs onto it, but it really doesn't go into eating. I don't see the thing sink in. I may be wrong. This one is the last of my P. cancerides to molt. The other 3 have molted. Well, there it goes. It's trying to sink in its fangs. And discoids tend to have a little bit of a harder exoskeleton, so it's kind of tough for them to stick it into the back part of their exoskeleton. So they usually have a tendency to kind of flip them over and sink them in to the abdominal side, just like that. So I guess it was hungry. Much softer on that side. P. cancerides number 3, and that's more of your typical attack there. I just barely drop it and they're on top of it in a flash. Next up is Brachypelma albopilosum, the curly hair tarantula. This one is a Nicaraguan curly hair. This one was a freebie given to me by Fear Not Tarantulas, and as you can see, it's been doing very well. It's probably big enough to go into a larger enclosure now, and I never have a problem feeding them. They always eat very readily. Curly hair number 2. This little guy got spooked by the food at first, so I had to kind of coax it a little bit. And there we go. And this one, curly hair number 3, quite feisty. Went for the food quickly. Then I decided to give it water. So I got a little tug of war here going on with a curly hair tarantula. They wouldn't let me give up that or get that watering dish from it. The more I tried, the harder it fought. Give me that watering dish. Woo! It even lost the roach in the process. Didn't want me to have anything. In the end, I got what I wanted. Got what she wanted, and everybody's happy. Even did a little happy dance. Next up, Brachypelma hamori, Mexican red knee. And these guys, when they're hungry and they'll eat. But they will start to fast pretty early on into pre-molt. You won't even be able to tell that they're in pre-molt, they'll just quit eating. Brachypelma hamori number 2. And I believe this one has been confirmed male, but he's a very good eater. I want to bring to your attention the plastic leaves that I have in there. If you notice, they look kind of chewed up. They tend to play with some of the decorations in their enclosure, and that's the result of their fangs scraping against it. Next up are Dolichothele diamantinensis, otherwise known as the Brazilian blue dwarf beauty. And these guys are very feisty. There's never a dull moment with them. I've heard people say that they tend to be bolty for them. For me, they tend to stay in their enclosure. Here's number 2. And I don't really worry about them bolting out. They usually tend to stay in there and they'll hide in the little funnel webs that they've made for them. But as far as eating, they will always readily attack their food. As you can see, they're probably a little over half an inch, but they've been growing pretty quickly and their colors come in very early on. They're nowhere near what they're going to be, but you can already see the blues and the greens coming out in them. Here's number 3. Once again, the roach will play dead. As soon as it moves, though, it's over. There we go. Wrong way, roach. And that is it. And number 4, probably my biggest one. You can see the colors are a little bit more defined on this one. Sink its fangs right in. Next up, Nandu chromatus, Brazilian red and white. And it still hasn't gotten its full coloration in. The abdomen is not quite as red as what it's going to be. Very defensive species. They're quick to attack, and if you mess with them in any way, paintbrush or whatever, to try to do an enclosure change, they will really quickly get into a threat posture. I've even had them to where they will double back and almost lay completely on their back. They'll roll over on their backs just so they can get a hold of you and sink in their fang. Next is Lasiodora parahibana, also known as the salmon pink tarantula. Again, another species that is very quick to attack its prey, always hungry, never dull moment with these guys. They are big time hair flickers though, a lot more than I want them to be. And this is my second L. parahibana, and as you can see, they're extremely feisty. This one decided it wanted to attack the side of its enclosure. And I'm going to pause this right here. If you can see that empty socket right there, it is missing a leg. This is not my doing. I took them to school, and I think I had an inquisitive student who asked me to go look at my tarantulas, and I think they opened up the lid, and because it was pretty high up on the edge there, you see how the log goes up to the edge. I think they got spooked when the tarantula tried to make a move outward, and they slammed the lid on its leg, because when I opened it, when I went to feed it, there was a leg stuck to the side and it was missing a leg. And after I accidentally did this with my HMAC, I told myself I would never do this again, and I was pretty furious about it. But you know, it will grow back eventually. Next molt, it'll have a little gimpy leg, and then eventually it'll get its whole leg back. Next is Ephiopus murinus, and it completely webbed up its enclosure and finally decided to make itself a burrow, and I'm trying to coax it out of the burrow, and like a flash it comes up and grabs the roach. I was able to repeat this again another day, and this time I decided to use a larger roach. I've got an adult discoid here. I was wondering if it would take it, because some of my tarantulas tend to get a little bit shy when the prey gets too big. I was hoping to get a longer view of this tarantula, because they do tend to retreat into their burrows really fast. But that's as much as I got. See you, roach. And next up is Grammostola porteri, or the common rose hair. This is a rare sight, believe it or not, because it seems like most of the time these guys are fasting. So I don't have a whole lot of footage of them eating, but I managed to get this one to eat. It's recently molted, so that's probably why. Usually right after a molt, they tend to be hungry and they'll eat for a while. But it seems like they reach their filling point, and then after that they will start to fast, and sometimes they'll go 6 months, a year before they'll even eat again, until the next molt. Next is the Salmopius cambridgei, otherwise known as the Trinidad chevron. And ever since I rehoused it and gave it this cork tube, it loves the cork tube, so I don't see her out as often as I used to. The cork tube is obviously very comfortable for her, and she pretty much stays in there. So this is usually as much as I get. She just yanked that right off the tongs there. It's hard to believe how such a small creature could have so much strength. I mean, it literally yanked it off. I could feel it pulling on my hand when it yanked it. And that is pretty much the most I will see of her unless she comes out for a drink, and that's usually late at night, so I don't get to see her very often anymore. I love the green coloration. She has become totally green, which is weird because she used to be a nice beige tan color. So there's a close-up of her sinking her fangs into the roach. You can see that nice bright striping that she has on her toes there, on her legs. And she's gonna turn around and give us the booty. And even her abdomen has turned green. And this is Chilobrachys fimbriatus, known as the Indian violet. These guys I see quite often. I'm gonna do a rehousing on my next video because I'd like to put them in a clear enclosure. Because they're in an opaque enclosure, I see them out. They usually sit out on their webbing all the time, but whenever I bother them, I open the enclosure, do anything, they will usually retreat into their burrows really, really quick, and I don't see them anymore. When I feed, I usually will wind the prey up in their webbing so that they're forced to come out and grab the prey like I did there, but sometimes they don't come out very far. And usually they just quickly retreat right back into the burrow where they'll eat. And this is my second Indian violet. Again, I wrap up the roach in the webbing so that the tarantula will come out. And we get a better view on this one, but it's amazing to me how quick these guys are. It's almost like you speed up the footage when they move around because they're so quick and their movements are so jerky. And this was a real treat for me. This is Harpactira pulchripes, the golden blue leg baboon. And this one was purchased for me by a friend. I babysat his tarantulas, and he bought this for me as payment for that, which was pretty cool of him, very generous of him. It is one of my favorite tarantulas, and you'll see in just a moment. I see this one out all the time on the webbing, but again, it's in an opaque enclosure, so I don't get to see it very well. And anytime I open the enclosure to try to get a picture or some video, it always runs into its burrow. But I did manage to catch a feeding on this one, so I was pretty happy about that. That was a very special treat for me. As you can see in just a little bit how beautiful this species is. Oh, and there it is. Those gorgeous, gorgeous blue legs. I can't believe how beautiful they are. And that golden coloration of them, it's almost like a OBT except with the blue legs. Disposition though is completely opposite. These guys are pretty docile. I don't usually get a threat posture. It's always retreat, of course, but this one's tiny. It's about an inch long, so I don't know, maybe later on I'll see some of that, but right now I have not seen anything defensive about it. It's very skittish though. And that's about all we're gonna see of that. the color on the video just doesn't do it justice. I wish I could have captured it as it truly is, because it's a lot more brilliant than that. And last but not least is the Caribena versicolor. This one is one of those that, to me, is just hard to believe the colors on this particular tarantula, this species in general. They're just gorgeous. There's purples, there's reds, there's greens, and it's just this brilliant iridescent and just gorgeous color. Again, the video doesn't do it justice. When you see it in natural light, it's just awesome. And I believe this is a little boy here, almost reaching maturity. I've already got somebody lined up to take him when he does reach maturity. But yeah, I'm definitely going to get some more of these. Hopefully at the National Breeders Expo, Fear Not will bring some of these with them, and as an added treat, I do believe they have Tom Moran's spiderlings that he bred himself, so that would be extra cool for me to have some of Tom Moran's Caribena versicolors. And I don't know what it's doing there. It's doing this little pumping motion. I don't know if it's like pumping venom in there or if it's the roach tugging or what, but it's kind of an interesting thing to see it hold it there and then just start kind of bobbing up and down. And that's pretty much what we're going to see of that. And that'll wrap it up for me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, subscribe. If you want to support this channel, I have a link down below to my Redbubble store. Any of the proceeds from that Redbubble store will go directly to help support and grow this channel. Until next time, keep loving them tarantulas.